You know, when we think about how a nation is built, we tend to think of physical things, of borders, of buildings, of infrastructure. But what if the true foundation is something else entirely? What if it's built not with bricks, but with words? Today, we're going to explore how our shared reality, our very cultural identity, is constructed from language, using a really fascinating case study.
This right here, this is the core concept. The unique power of human language isn't just about describing what's in front of us. Its true magic is the ability to talk about what isn't there, the past, the future, the hypothetical. This is what allows us to create entire worlds in our collective minds, what the source material calls imaginal realms.
And that's the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it? How does a shared story, an idea that exists only in our heads, become something so powerful it shapes art, laws, and a whole way of life? Well, that's exactly the journey we're going to trace.
Okay, so first things first. Before we get into the historical specifics, we need to understand the philosophical engine that drives this entire process. Let's lay that foundation. It all starts with a linguistic concept known as displacement. It sounds technical, but it's actually quite simple. It's our ability to talk about things that aren't happening right here, right now. It's what allows us to make plans, to tell stories about our ancestors, to imagine a different future. Without it, we're just reacting to our immediate surroundings. With it, well, with it we can build civilizations.
And this is the crucial next step. Displacement allows each of us to have these abstract thoughts, but language is what lets us share them. It's the bridge that connects your inner world to mine. The sources call it a spirit bridge, and it's this very connection that allows us to build a shared collective reality from countless individual minds. So let's move from the abstract to the concrete. Let's see how this spirit bridge was actually constructed piece by piece in the Low Countries through the birth of a unified Dutch language.
Just look at this timeline. We're talking about a journey of over 1,500 years. And you can see it wasn't a neat linear process. It was a messy evolution, a slow blending of different tribal dialects shaped by the practical needs of growing cities and expanding trade. A standard language didn't just pop into existence. It had to be deliberately forged.
And this was the critical moment, the Statenvertaling. The government itself stepped in and commissioned a new translation of the Bible. But this wasn't just any translation. It was a conscious effort to blend the major regional dialects into one unified standard language. For the first time, people from all corners of the land could read the same text, hear the same words, and feel they were part of one shared story. It was a cultural revolution.
So what happens when an entire population begins to speak, read, and think in the same language? Well, they start to see the world in a shared way. And this new, unified vision absolutely exploded into one of the most remarkable periods in the history of art.
You see, after the Protestant Reformation, the main patron for the arts was no longer the all-powerful church. Instead, it was this new, incredibly wealthy class of merchants and citizens. And they weren't interested in huge, epic religious paintings. They wanted art that reflected their own world, their own values, their own homes.
And this is what you get. Just look at the incredible intimacy of this work. It's not a saint, it's not a queen, it's a girl, captured in a private, fleeting psychological moment. This new Dutch art turned its focus inward, exploring the quiet beauty of domestic life, the richness of the ordinary world, and the depths of the individual soul.
And when you compare it to what was happening elsewhere in Europe, the contrast is just stunning. Italian Baroque art was all about drama, mythology, and grandeur for the church and nobility. Dutch art was quiet, it was personal, and it was bought by a broad class of regular citizens for their own homes. This was a visual culture built from the ground up, not handed down from on high.
All right, so we've seen how a shared language creates a shared culture. The next logical step, that shared identity begins to express itself politically. Now, every single human society develops systems for managing its collective knowledge and defining its group identity. You see it with ancient shamans guiding their tribes, or with secretive orders pursuing a moral ideal. The modern nation-state is just another version of this same impulse, a highly complex system for organizing a people around a shared purpose. And here we see this principle in action, crystal clear. When the state of Belgium was created, French was the language of power, of government, law, and high society. This created an immediate and powerful backlash from the Dutch-speaking population, sparking a movement to assert their own linguistic and cultural identity. And look at what they fought for. It wasn't just about cultural pride. It was about power. They demanded Dutch in the courts, Dutch in the schools, Dutch in government. This was a fight for the fundamental right of a community to define its own reality, to conduct its most important business in its own language.
So let's bring this all the way to the present day. That shared reality we've been talking about is no longer just found in Bibles and paintings. Now, it's encoded into the very operating system of modern society.
That imaginal realm we started with? It's now been made incredibly concrete. It is encoded in legal frameworks, in financial regulations, in social policies, all of it forming the complex architecture of a modern nation, and all of it built with highly specialized language. Just think about it. An employment contract, a mortgage agreement, a piece of tax legislation. These aren't just words on a page. These documents are the intricate code that governs our daily lives and our interactions with each other. They are the direct descendants of those first shared myths, now evolved into a complex social grammar.
And that really is the thread that runs through this entire story. From the very first stories told around a campfire to the most complicated laws passed today, the fundamental principle is exactly the same. The architecture of our world is and always has been built with words.
This quote from the source material just ties it all together so perfectly. It suggests that whether we call ourselves shamans or citizens or technologists, we are all engaged in the same timeless human project, trying to organize what we know and cross that spirit bridge to build a shared world of meaning.
And so this leaves us with one final, rather profound question for our own era. For all of human history, we have built our cultures on the foundation of language. So what happens if we develop technologies that allow us to share knowledge and consciousness directly, without the middleman of words? If we invent a new kind of spirit bridge, what happens to the architecture of identity itself?